A drunken night left Julian with a pregnant girl on his hands. By the time I found out, she was already 6 months along. He said, "Let's keep the baby, and we can go back to how things were." I shook my head and stubbornly asked him, "Me or this child, who do you choose?" That day, he was silent for a long time, unable to give me an answer, but after I disappeared, he came to regret it. After 5 years of marriage to Julian, I never imagined this is how we would end. At the hospital entrance, Julian was carefully helping a young, beautiful girl down the steps. I stood a short distance away, and our eyes met. His face was full of a tenderness I knew so well, but it wasn't for me. His gaze faltered, and he stiffly looked away. The girl beside him, with her large belly, also glanced at me, and tears instantly welled up in her eyes. After settling the girl safely in the car and murmuring a few instructions, Julian finally walked over to me. His steps were calm and composed, showing none of the panic he should have felt at being caught. He first took my hand, which was as cold as ice, and held it tightly in his. "Why are you at the hospital? Are you not feeling well?" He spoke with concern, reaching out to touch my forehead. I flinched away. "Who is she?" Julian didn't answer my question. Instead, he pulled me into his arms to comfort me. "She's no one important. I'll explain when we get home." "Okay," his gentle whispers, at that moment, finally made the tears fall. I defiantly tilted my head up, demanding an answer. If he just told me, I would believe him. Julian sighed softly, then gently wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes. "The child is mine." The tears froze on my face. It felt like I had forgotten how to breathe. I bit my lip until it was raw, struggling out of his embrace and backing away, step by step. Only then did a flash of anger cross Julian's face. He pulled me back to his side, his eyes filled with pain. "Eleanor, you can blame me, but you can't torture yourself like this." I didn't understand why he could do something like this and still act as if he loved me. During our silent standoff, the girl got out of the car. "Get back inside," Julian snapped, his voice devoid of warmth. The girl looked at him timidly but didn't leave, a new firmness in her eyes. "Miss Eleanor, it's not what you think between Mr. Julian and me. This baby was an accident." With that, she gave a bitter smile. "If I had a choice, I would want him less than anyone." My vision blurred, and though I couldn't see his expression clearly, I knew Julian well enough to sense that his initial coldness had already softened. "Enough, don't say any more," I screamed, overwhelmed by jealousy and resentment. The girl flinched, nearly stumbling, but Julian swiftly caught her in his arms. I stared blankly at the scene, a single thought flashing through my mind. I lunged toward them. Just as I was about to reach for her swollen belly, a powerful force shoved me away. I fell to the ground, looked at my scraped palm, and gave a bitter laugh. Julian stared at the hand he had used to push me, frozen in disbelief. That day, Julian left the 6 months pregnant girl and took me home. But I knew that for him and me, there was no future left. Back home, Julian gave me his explanation. I sat on the bed for a long time without moving. He stood on my bedroom balcony, smoking for the entire night. I knew he was punishing himself, trying to make me feel sorry for him. When it came to me, he always knew my weaknesses. As dawn broke, Julian turned and came back inside, walking over to me. "You must be hungry. What do you want to eat? I'll make it." My voice was hoarse as I stopped him. "Julian, we need to talk." Julian froze, his back to me for a long moment. He knew my personality. I cared about things like this, deeply, even though he was drunk that day, even though his encounter with that girl was unintentional. I could not forgive it. That's why Julian had hidden it. But no one expected that the stranger, a one-night encounter for him, would get pregnant. Due to her unique physical condition, she couldn't terminate the pregnancy, and that brought us to today. Julian eventually left. He couldn't face the words I was about to say. I know he loved me. If he didn't, we wouldn't have had our long courtship. If he didn't, he wouldn't have spoiled me into someone who was quick to tears and loved to be pampered. For the next week, Julian didn't come home, but he still called the housekeeper every day to ask, in meticulous detail, how I was doing. Our housekeeper tried to persuade me. "Ma'am, you and the mister are the most loving couple I've ever seen. Whatever it is, you can work it out." The mister, he's lost a lot of weight recently. She had been with us for years and had never seen Julian and me argue even once. Even Julian's mother, who had disapproved of me in the early years, gradually accepted me as her daughter-in-law because of how happy we were together. The phone rang. It was from one of Julian's friends. "Eleanor, Julian's really drunk. Can you come pick him up? Don't worry about him." After hanging up, the frustration inside me only grew. The image of Julian stooped back as he left kept replaying in my mind. I couldn't bring myself to leave him there alone. After a moment of struggle, I grabbed my car keys and walked out the door. The door to the private room was ajar. I stood outside, not going in. Julian was indeed drunk, sprawled across the sofa without a care for his image. Standing before him was the girl with the large belly. Julian's friend looked a little embarrassed. Miss Sophia, Eleanor wouldn't come, and Julian wouldn't leave, so I had no choice but to call you. The girl smiled softly and took one of Julian's arms to help him up. He unexpectedly pushed her away. A few gasps of surprise seemed to jolt Julian from his drunken stupor. He looked at the woman in front of him, his smile more painful than tears. Sophia, it's all your fault. Nora doesn't want me anymore. Julian kept repeating this, then started looking for more alcohol. No one could stop him. He grabbed a bottle and began chugging it down recklessly. Suddenly, Sophia snatched the bottle from his hand and smashed it on the floor. The room fell silent. Even Julian, who had been throwing a drunken fit, stared at her blankly. Julian, your shouting is going to scare our child. Get up. I'm tired. You're taking me home. Julian, a man who commanded respect throughout the city, had never been ordered around like that by anyone but me. Everyone held their breath, expecting him to explode, but in the tense silence, Julian said nothing. He slowly got up, picked up his coat, and quietly followed Sophia out. I hid around the corner and watched them go, a man and a woman. A smile touched my lips, but it was laced with bitterness. I followed their taxi to a high-end apartment complex. I watched as Julian got out and went upstairs with the girl. A light switched on in one of the windows of the tall building. I sat in my car and watched all night. Julian never came out. At 7 in the morning, he emerged, holding a bag of breakfast, and went back inside. I watched that all, too familiar back, and then, I quietly drove away. I called Julian back, but I didn't mention divorce. I looked at the man, who had grown thinner, and quickly averted my gaze. I didn't pick you up last night. Where did you stay? Julian's fingers trembled slightly. After a moment, he said, I stayed at the office. I couldn't quite name the feeling in my heart. There was some sadness, but mostly, it was disappointment. Since when had Julian learned to lie to me? The man who once promised to be honest with me for a lifetime had changed. I didn't expose his lie. To me, it no longer mattered. How many months along is she? Julian's voice paused for a few seconds, as if he couldn't bear to hurt me. Almost 7 months. Then, he knelt on one knee before me, burying his head deep in my lap. His tears soaked my dress. Nora, I was wrong. Please don't leave me. In my memory, Julian had never cried. Now, he was crying uncontrollably. Seeing him like this, my own heart ached. But I knew, at this moment, I couldn't be soft. Arrange a meeting for me with her. We met at Sophia's apartment. Julian waited for me outside. Sophia gently caressed her stomach, her eyes full of anticipation for her child. That night, the room was dark. I was so scared. But the next morning, when I saw Mr. Julian lying next to me, I felt a moment of relief, of happiness. Sophia smiled as she spoke. She looked up at me, still with that gentle, beautiful expression. Miss Eleanor, now that Mr. Julian's and my child is almost here, why don't you just let us be? With Julian absent, the girl in front of me seemed like a different person. Honestly, I wasn't that surprised. The night I went looking for Julian, Sophia had glanced toward the door where I was hiding. I knew she had seen me then. She slowly stood up and opened a closed door. Inside was a cozy nursery. Mr. Julian picked out everything in here himself. He decorated the room, too. He's not without anticipation for this child. I wanted to maintain my last shred of composure in front of Sophia, who was flaunting Julian's fatherly love, but she provoked me. So, Julian did have expectations for this child. He wasn't indifferent. All the strength seemed to drain from my body. I braced myself with one hand on the dining table, knocking over a glass of water. The sharp crack echoed in my chest, shattering my heart into 1,000 pieces. Hearing the noise, Julian rushed in to see me swaying on my feet and Sophia on the floor, crying out in pain. That day, I will never forget. Julian's first choice was no longer me. Sophia shot me a triumphant smile, believing she had won. As he passed me, Julian hesitated for only a fraction of a second. Ultimately, he walked past me, lifted Sophia into his arms, and rushed her to the hospital. As he left, Julian didn't look at me. I stood there for a long time, slowly accepting the fact that he had abandoned me. I followed them to the hospital. By the time I arrived, Julian's parents were already there. So, I was the only one in the dark. They had known all along. Seeing me, Julian's mother slapped me across the face. If anything happens to my grandson, I'll make you pay. Julian immediately stepped in front of me, shielding me behind him. Seeing this, his mother grew even angrier. Julian, it's one thing for you to protect her normally, but now she's trying to harm your son. Julian laughed, his voice tight with suppressed defiance. So what? If he's gone, he's gone. If they hadn't kept this child behind his back, would Nora be this heartbroken? No one knew that when he saw Sophia fall, his first reaction had been a flicker of joy. He was beginning to regret this accident. The doctor came out of the room and announced that the baby was safe. Julian's parents hurried in, fussing over Sophia, but Sophia's gaze remained fixed on Julian, who stood at the door, her expression pitiful. She dared to frame me, but I wouldn't let her get her way. I revealed my swollen, red cheek for him to see, to make his heart ache, and said to Julian, I don't want to be here anymore. Julian left with me. As we were leaving, I looked back at Sophia on the hospital bed and returned her smile with one of my own. For now, at least, Julian still chose me, even if it was a choice I no longer wanted. In the days that followed, while Julian thought I was accepting the child, I was already preparing to leave. I packed my things and prepared the divorce papers. All that was left was to wait for the right day. That's right. I would leave on the day Sophia gave birth. She wanted me to step aside for her happy family of 3. I would grant her that wish. Lately, I'd been feeling a dull ache in my lower abdomen. I had originally gone to the hospital that day for a check-up, never expecting to run into them. I rescheduled my appointment and had the tests done. When I got the results, I laughed through my tears. The child Julian and I had tried for 5 years without success. Now, it seemed this baby had come at the worst possible time. I walked through the hospital in a daze, holding the pregnancy report, unsure of what to do with this new life inside me. I knew I should terminate it, but I couldn't bear to. This decision felt even harder than giving up Julian, until I looked up and saw Julian accompanying Sophia, who had just finished a prenatal check-up. These past few days, neither of us had brought up Sophia. He had mistaken my silence for acceptance. Julian, our baby is very healthy. I'm so happy, Sophia said. Julian's voice was unreadable, but the slight lift of his brow betrayed his good mood. Yes, you've taken good care of him. They were discussing the baby, neither of them noticing I had stopped in front of them. The moment Julian saw me, he immediately let go of Sophia's hand, creating distance between them. After a moment of silence, I spoke first. What a coincidence. Well, I'll let you get back to it. I have to go. Julian grabbed my arm in a panic, refusing to let me leave. Nora, let me explain. I calmly pulled my hand away, showing no anger. I'm not angry. This child is your responsibility. I understand. At my words, Sophia's eyes suddenly lit up. Miss Eleanor, do you really agree to keep the child? Since we had already shown our true colors to each other last time, I had no intention of being polite. Miss Sophia, your child is due in a few days. Does it matter if I agree or not? The woman's voice became desperate, tinged with tears. I was forced into this. It was pointless to say such things now. Without letting Julian follow, I turned and went back to the doctor's office. A moment ago, someone else had already made the decision for me. The day Sophia went into labor, Julian was called away at 4 in the morning. As he left, he leaned in and whispered in my ear, Nora, once this child is born, can we go back to how we were before? He knew I wasn't asleep. He also knew that with this new child between us, things could never be the same. I kept my eyes shut and gave him no response, but just as he was about to walk out the door, I suddenly called out to him. I asked him stubbornly, Julian, me or this child, who do you choose? Seeing his shocked and conflicted expression, I shook my head and urged him to leave. As I lay back down, Julian said softly, wait for me to come back. I'll take care of everything, but I didn't need you to take care of it anymore. I would do it myself. After he left, I placed the divorce papers and a USB drive on the bedside table. Without a single goodbye, I left the home I had once cherished so much. My flight wasn't for another 2 days, so I went back to my hometown. I hadn't been back since marrying Julian. The small, one-story house of my childhood had been replaced by a 2-story building that stood out among the others. Someone with sharp eyes spotted me and shouted, Old Shin's daughter, the one who married into wealth, is back. Within a minute, I was surrounded by a crowd of people. My parents came out of the house. Seeing my empty hands, the smiles on their faces froze. They ushered me inside with fake smiles. The moment the door closed, my mother pinched my waist hard. You useless girl, you couldn't even bring us anything. We raised you for nothing. I'm divorced. Julian won't be giving you any more money." The entire family looked as if a catastrophe had struck. Their faces changed instantly. Look at them. This family that sold their daughter and leeched off her. My family. When they learned I had left with nothing, not a single penny, they ruthlessly threw me out. I stood outside the locked gate, feeling no sadness. In front of this family, I should thank Julian. He was the one who had shielded me from this storm, giving me 5 years of peace. But now that we were separated, I didn't want them bothering his new life. Having dealt with that problem, I boarded the plane without a single look back, leaving the city where I had lived for so many years. Sophia gave birth to a healthy 8-pound boy. Julian had a son. At that moment, I was on a plane, lost in memories. I remembered when Julian and I first got together. That year, my family told me my grandfather was sick and needed medicine. They had no money, and if I didn't give them any, they wouldn't treat him. I transferred all my savings to them, not even leaving enough for a single meal. I ate instant noodles for a month until my next paycheck. Later, Julian found out. A man like him, born with a silver spoon, had never known what it was like to be short of money. His eyes turned red, and his voice was hoarse when he asked me, "Why didn't you tell me?" Before I could answer, he pulled me into a tight embrace, his tone full of heartache for me. "Don't forget, you have me." That day, I met the first person in my 20-odd years who I could truly rely on. In our 5 years of marriage, Julian never broke his promise. After my grandfather passed away, he shielded me from all the troublesome people in my family. Was Julian good to me? My answer is, yes, very good. At least, before Sophia, he was a wonderful, wonderful husband. But love isn't enough to get you through a lifetime. Even if I hadn't left this time, that child would have remained a thorn in my heart. Left there for too long, it would have festered. I wanted our beautiful memories to stop here, to stop at this moment, while we still loved each other. After the plane landed, I looked up at the vast blue sky. From now on, for him and me, the sky is wide, the sea is vast. We go our separate ways. The moment the child was born, Julian felt a flicker of joy. This was the child he had anticipated, his bloodline, his son. So, in that moment of happiness, he benevolently stayed with Sophia at the hospital for one night. He didn't come home that night. He wanted to arrange everything for Sophia and her son, so he would no longer have to be in contact with them. Then he and Eleanor could go back to their loving life. But Eleanor didn't wait for him. She disappeared on her own. When the housekeeper came to the hospital to find him, Julian was carefully holding his newborn son. Hearing that Eleanor had left, Julian didn't get up to look for her. He just closed his eyes tightly, because he knew, this time, Eleanor would not forgive him. Julian never signed the divorce papers on the bedside table. He watched the video on the USB drive. The two items, placed together, mocked his foolishness. At the end of the drive was a video Eleanor had recorded for him. After listening to it, Julian began to sob uncontrollably. He knew he was wrong, terribly wrong. Eleanor had known everything. "Julian, after so many years of marriage, I failed to give the family a child. That's on me. I know how much you wanted a child of your own. Whatever your reason was for keeping this child, it doesn't matter anymore. Let's part on good terms." Eleanor had seen right through his calculations. He had wanted to keep the child, for a self-centered man like him. Only the people who mattered to him were important. What did others matter? If he hadn't wanted it, that child would never have been born. It was his silent consent that allowed his parents to support Sophia through her pregnancy. It was his genuine joy that gave Sophia the opportunity to wound the person he loved most. Julian had wanted to have it all, but in the end, he lost the one person he cherished most. "Julian, the child is already born. What are you trying to do now?" Julian's mother was furious, watching him prepare to give away her newborn grandson. "Without this child, Nora might forgive me." Julian was resolute. He didn't want this child for a second longer. He had already found a family to adopt him. He would give them enough money to ensure the boy wouldn't be mistreated. Seeing Julian's stubbornness, his mother begged, "Julian, this is your own son. Can you really bear to give him away? Mom knows you're heartbroken because Eleanor divorced you, but no matter what you do, she's not coming back. To me, no one is more important than Nora. Mom, I regret it." A tremor went through Julian's heart. Swallowing the bitterness, he forcefully took the 1-month-old baby and left. The incident caused a huge stir in their social circle and was talked about for a long time. Some said Julian was heartless, others said he was a devoted romantic. Regardless, the family became a laughingstock. After 6 months, Julian found my address. When he was about to come find me, his cousin, Grace, stopped him. His cousin was my senior in college, and she was the one who had been taking care of me abroad. Julian, don't come. Eleanor said if you come, she'll leave. We all saw how much you loved her back then. How could you have been so foolish about this? Faced with his cousin's questions, Julian was speechless. Time wouldn't give him a second chance. After a long pause, Julian asked in a low voice, "How is she?" "She's great. Eating well, sleeping well. She's even gained some weight." Julian forced a bitter smile, his chin sharp and thin. "That's good. Take care of her." After hanging up, the joy of having found her began to slowly spread through him. He laughed out loud in his dark, empty house. He had found her. That was wonderful. On the other end, Grace angrily put down her phone, muttering a few curses. I looked at the still, fuming woman with amusement. "I'm not even upset anymore. Why are you still so angry? How can it be the same? You and my cousin were so in love. How did it come to this?" Everyone who knew about our separation felt sorry for us, but when fate runs its course, you can't force it. Grace was my best friend, and some questions only she could ask. Her gaze shifted to my stomach. "Nora, what are your plans for the baby? Are you not going to let my cousin know?" I caressed the child that was mine alone, my eyes filled with tenderness. I hadn't gone through with the termination. At the last moment, I had changed my mind. I no longer had a family, no longer had Julian. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life all alone. She has no father, only a mother. A month later, I gave birth to a girl. I now had the most precious person in the world. I worked while raising my daughter, living a happy and fulfilling life. I had invested in Grace's company as a technical partner, and now the company was doing very well. I had more than enough to give my daughter a comfortable life. Before I knew it, my daughter was 5. Under Grace's threats, Julian didn't dare come looking for me, but he would ask Grace about me every month. Grace asked if she should tell him. I nodded. Other than my daughter's existence, there was nothing to hide. Due to a business shift, Grace's company was relocating back to our home country. This time, she was going back to get married. Naturally, I had to go back with her for the wedding. My daughter was a late bloomer and looked smaller than other kids her age. She also looked nothing like Julian. Besides, he already had a son. He probably wouldn't care about a daughter. The day we returned, Grace had last-minute work, so her fiancé brought us back first. When the plane landed, Julian was waiting outside to pick us up, because Grace was always over at my place for dinner. Her fiancé knew us well. He was holding my daughter's hand, which led Julian to misunderstand. A sharp pain shot through Julian's chest. It felt like something was stuck in his throat, making it hard to breathe. Seeing us approach, he used all his strength to utter a few words. "You're back." I gave a soft, not saying much else. With the passage of time, all those romantic feelings had faded. The moment I saw Julian today, I knew I had moved on from the past. Outside the airport, Julian offered to drive us. Grace's fiancé, knowing Julian had likely misunderstood our relationship, didn't correct him. Instead, he smiled and declined. "That's okay. We have a car." After we got in the car, Julian just stood there, watching until we were out of sight. My daughter asked me, "Mommy, who was that strange uncle?" He looked like he was about to cry. "Do groan. UPS cry too." I stroked my daughter's soft hair without looking back. "That uncle is a friend of Mommy's." The wind probably got in his eyes. A short while later, Grace called me, saying Julian had asked about my daughter. As we had planned, she told him the girl was my adopted daughter. Julian believed it. Grace returned a few days after us and was immediately swamped with wedding preparations. She handed over much of the company's work to me. After a few days of fun with my daughter, I got busy with work. I don't know how Julian found out where I lived, but his car was often parked downstairs these past few days. He would stay there all night. I pretended not to notice and ignored it. An almost stranger no longer had any effect on me. On the day of Grace's wedding, I brought my daughter and ran into Julian and his parents. Grace was Julian's cousin. So many people in their circle recognized me. Seeing me with a child, they started whispering among themselves. Julian deliberately shielded me from their prying eyes, while also blocking the resentful glare from his mother. Those who didn't get along with his mother wouldn't miss this opportunity. Someone asked me, "Eleanor, dear, that child couldn't be from the family, could she?" Mrs. Jiang, with a grandson and now a granddaughter. "You're truly blessed." I didn't care what they thought or said about me, but I wouldn't tolerate them talking about my daughter. I smiled at the woman, who was younger than Julian's mother but had more wrinkles. "You're the one who's truly blessed." A house full of children and grandchildren. Her husband's 7th son, just 10 years old, had recently been acknowledged and brought into the family. The woman fell silent. After that, I grew worried they might recognize my daughter, so I deliberately kept my daughter hidden from the family for the rest of the event. I planned to leave early with her after the main ceremony, but I turned my back for a moment, and she was gone. When I looked again, my daughter was standing in front of Julian's mother, her little chin tilted up. "Grandma, you're not allowed to glare at my mommy." Julian's mother was stunned for a long moment, her face a mask of disbelief. Her hand trembled as she reached out to touch my daughter's face. "Tell Grandma, how old are you?" My daughter held up 4 fingers and said what I had taught her. "I'm 4 years old." The light in Julian's mother's eyes dimmed, and she muttered to herself, "So alike. They look so alike." The little girl in front of her was the spitting image of her as a child. My heart pounded. Her reaction was not normal, and I was afraid she had figured something out. I hurried to my daughter's side, wanting to take her away. Just then, a boy of about 5 or 6 suddenly shouted, "Liar, didn't you just tell me you were 5? My daughter looked up at me, her face flushing red with embarrassment. "Mommy, I forgot." I closed my eyes, accepting the reality. Thankfully, Julian had his son, and his parents had their grandson. No one, no matter who they were, would take my daughter from me. During the commotion, Grace was pulled aside and questioned. She looked over at me. I nodded at her. After the wedding, my daughter and I went back to the old family mansion with Julian's parents. In the car, his mother held my daughter and wouldn't let go. Overjoyed, his father also had a rare smile on his face. Julian, who came in last, was the happiest of all. His eyes never left our daughter. After the housekeeper took my daughter out to play, I finally spoke. "She is mine alone. I will never hand her over to you." Seeing my firm attitude, Julian's mother was just as assertive. "She is our family's granddaughter. I can't let you take her. Name your price." Since there was no point in talking further, I picked up my bag to leave. Julian blocked me at the door. "You've raised her very well. What my mother says doesn't count." At that moment, I could feel Julian's excitement. He was several times gentler than usual, but regardless, his words did make me feel slightly better about him. "You already have a son. You already have a grandson. Why are you so determined to fight me for my daughter?" But when I said this, the expressions on Julian and his parents' faces all changed. Julian's face became very placid, as if he were talking about something that had nothing to do with him. His parents, however, looked almost disgusted. I thought I must have seen wrong. After all, that was the grandson they had so longed for. That evening, Grace gave me the answer. It turned out that after I left, Julian had given away the child Sophia had born. When the boy was 4, his parents found him and brought him back to the family home, but Julian refused to acknowledge him. A son, unrecognized by his father, still had not been given the family name, because he hadn't grown up with them, and because of many habits his grandparents found displeasing. He was a source of friction, and because of him, their son Julian no longer visited the family home. Gradually, they grew distant from the boy as well. Now, the child locks himself in his room all day, withdrawn and isolated. "What about Sophia? Doesn't she care?" Grace's voice on the phone dropped to a whisper, as if afraid of being overheard. "I heard that my cousin was set up by that woman. Sophia, she drugged his drink." According to Grace, Julian became suspicious after watching the video I gave him. The video I had recorded at Sophia's apartment that day. After learning what kind of person she was, I would never have gone to see her unprepared. It didn't take long for him to find evidence. Julian showed no mercy and had Sophia sent to prison. I sighed at the news, never expecting things to end this way. I only felt sorry for the child Sophia had born. Ever since he found out we had a daughter together, Julian had been trying to get back together with me. His parents were very supportive, as it would mean they could always see their granddaughter. Julian resorted to his old courtship tactics, coming up with all sorts of grand gestures. I spent my days avoiding him. Seeing me like this, Grace suggested I should just go back abroad. The thought had crossed my mind, but when I discussed it with my daughter, she agreed, but I could see her hesitation. I didn't say anything, just quietly waited for her to speak her true feelings. "Mommy, I like it here. Can we please not go back?" I asked my daughter. "Do you like that uncle who's always downstairs from our house?" My daughter was smart and sensible. She had never once asked me who her father was. "Is he my daddy?" A light danced in her eyes. I replied, "Yes, he's your daddy." To make my daughter happy, we would stay. As for a persistent Julian, I had ways of dealing with him. I asked Julian to meet me, wanting to talk things over. He declined my invitation 3 times before finally showing up. We knew each other too well. If I hadn't asked to meet him alone, there might have been a chance for us. But now, He knew it was truly over between us. Can't we get back together, even for the sake of our child? Julian's question was so humble it angered me. Julian, I am a person first, and a mother second. I can do anything for my daughter, but only if I am willing. Over the years, I rarely thought about my past with Julian. I never once thought about what happened with him and Sophia. But today, to make Julian give up for good, I had to tear open the healed over scar and expose the untouchable pain within. I stirred my coffee, my voice eerily calm as I asked, Julian, I remember you never drink anything a stranger hands you when you're out. I looked up at him. So that night, why did you drink the glass Sophia gave you? Julian's hand clenched abruptly, his lips trembled. After a long time, Julian closed his eyes in despair. That night, you were tempted by Sophia. This was the truth I couldn't face the night he gave me his explanation. There was no shortage of women trying to get close to him, but none had ever succeeded. Even if it was just a fleeting moment of temptation, it had existed, and that was what gave Sophia her opening. Julian himself knew the reason, he just hadn't been willing to admit it. When I left, Julian cried in front of me once more, but I would never cry for him again.